When I was 23 years old, all anybody wanted to ask me was, what do you do for a living? And what was my response? My response was, I do awesome. I'm Steve Armato, and I started this podcast to interview awesome people who build awesome lives. So now, let's do awesome. On today's episode, I have good friends Carla Marie and Anthony with me as we discuss pretty much everything from what took them from interns at a New York City radio station to having their own morning show in Seattle, and what really caused them to launch the morning show podcast that they have now. They are, I would call them the epitome of someone who's built awesome lives for themselves. And we talk about their journey and what they've built together. So stay tuned for this episode of Doing Awesome. My friends, Carla Marie and Anthony.
Hello, Stephen.
Welcome to Doing Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today. How are we doing?
Doing great. And first off, thank you for having us. And It's also nice to see you and talk to you live, because normally I'm just looking at all your reels and your TikToks and your tweets or X's or whatever we call them now. But now it's good to get the back and forth.
Yeah.
To me, social media lends you only see like bits and pieces of what's going on with people. And now we actually get to discuss anything we want. That's what we could do here. You guys are like the epitome of what this show is about. This is about people who create awesome lives and who are also awesome people. And the both of you have created your own path through everything that you've done. And it all started as interns at Z100.
Pretty much.
You take me back to there and how you first met and where it all began?
Yeah, I guess I got into the company first, so I'll start with that. I started as a part-timer while I was still in college. I went to Seton Hall University. One of my professors, when I switched over to TV and radio broadcasting, happened to be a guy who was working part-time at 103.5 KTU, which if you're in the New York, New Jersey area, Connecticut, you know KTU. It's like a staple. So I started on the street team there. And for about 3 years, I was just doing events, helping out in the office, all of that stuff. I became the promotions coordinator. And then an opportunity came up to become Elvis Duran's assistant, like personal assistant.
First one ever.
Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I've been doing this promo thing and I love it, but it's not a full-time job. It's part-time. And I love this radio thing that I've kind of been a part of. So I'm sure working with Elvis, I'll be able to learn a lot. And sure enough, I mean, I learned things it was like a master class in learning how to do radio, how to build a community, how to handle yourself, how to invest in yourself. And that kind of kicked off the rest of my journey.
Yeah, but you forgot the part of the journey where I came along.
Well, you can add that part.
Okay. In 2009, I was a student at Rutgers University and I needed to get an internship. And I was like, why don't I apply at my favorite morning show, Elvis Duran in the Morning Show? And at the time, they filled up the summer internship spots. So they're like, well, we'll take you next summer or whatever it is, like next semester. For now, intern in the afternoon with JJ. And he was on air at the time. So I spent my whole summer asking this man every question possible. And I don't think Anthony and I met until
2009-ish?
Because I probably started at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
You were long gone at that point, working in the morning with Elvis. So we were literally working at the same station, but didn't know each other until the next semester when I started interning with Elvis Duran in the Morning Show, all of them. And I never left. So I basically did 3 semesters. My last semester, I also worked in the digital department there, which was at the time kind of just creating and the station Facebook pages, like not fan pages really yet, just a Facebook page for the station. It was so different. Yeah. And I got hired full time to work at Elvis. And at that point we had known each other, but yeah, we met 2009, 2010.
Did you butt heads a little bit on the Seton Hall Rutgers front?
Oh, we still do.
Yeah, I mean, that was a bigger rivalry back in the day, like Big East.
It's still,
back when they were in the same conference, it was definitely different because those games mattered a little more. You're playing, especially basketball, because Seton Hall doesn't have a football team. But
we still hate you.
Yeah, but now it's still the big rivalry.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, both schools are now looking up at St. Peter's, FDU, and Princeton when it comes to NCAA success, which is rather annoying.
It's a little bit annoying. I agree with you on that. That's definitely a little bit annoying. But then now you meet each other, right? And My Day Friday comes along. Where did that stem from? Why did that begin?
So interestingly enough, I think both of us we like to be really creative and we like to try new things. And we were working an event together. We were driving up. I remember this day like it was yesterday. We were driving up from the station with a station vehicle, going up to a ski resort in the Catskills because we were doing an event there or filming something there, whatever it was. And iHeartRadio had just launched their like replay channels of a lot of their morning shows. So it wasn't a podcast necessarily. It was just the live stream that would repeat over and over and over. And we decided as we were driving up to listen to a couple of these shows we'd never heard of before. And keep in mind, both of us were like the lowest people on the totem pole.
But we'd known
at
each other
Elvis's
for
show.
5 years at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we were listening and going, a lot of these shows aren't very good. And we could definitely do this. Why don't we try and kind of practice hosting a morning show by doing a podcast?
Yeah.
We'll have topics, we'll have a schedule, we'll build it all out, all of that stuff. And that's kind of the genesis of My Day Friday.
Yeah, Anthony was the one that said to me, like, why don't we do a podcast? And I remember we were with my boyfriend at the time, and I was like, would you listen to a podcast if we did a podcast? And he was like, sure. But we didn't, like, we were saying podcast, but like, what did that even mean in 2014? Like, we didn't know, but we sat down and like Anthony said, we came up with a name because
the name actually came out. Carla Marie wasn't there when the name was developed. We were with some other coworkers from Elvis's show, and what we started doing was on Fridays. That was the day that we left early, maybe got some early drinks in Hoboken or whatever. And we started using this term My Day Friday in terms of like, the rest of the weekdays, you have to do what the man says.
Right.
Friday, we're going to make our day. And that's kind of just how it worked out.
Says the guy, we had a female boss, by the way, technically.
Yes.
So we had to do what the woman said.
Yeah.
After Elvis.
Well, there's a lot of men and women that were above us at that point.
But we also said it's so hard getting your voice heard on Elvis's show because there's so many people. So like, let's just practice talking. We never have more than 10 seconds really at a time to speak. So let's do this. And we sat down and legit had a work lunch and planned out this podcast where I feel like most people are like, let's just do a podcast, whatever. I'll just download a random logo that some AI thing generated and start talking. We planned out how it was going to work, the website, the Instagram account. So all of it. And we went into it like it was a real business and no one cared. No one cared about it. That was the crazy thing at first.
I remember the funniest thing now with people in podcasting, especially radio personalities and whatnot, is the amount of people that would see us working on a Friday afternoon, because we would record it on Friday 99% of the time, they'd be leaving to go head out for their weekends. They would legitimately make fun of us.
You doing your little podcast?
And then it started growing a little bit more because we tried to make sure that we were doing things on Twitter at the time, on Instagram, really promoting it ourselves. And then Elvis put us on air one day and talked about it. And from then it kind of like took off.
But now all those people that were, that were basically talking shit about it, what I guess they didn't know is you were pretty much, and I don't even know if you knew this at the time, did you realize that you were laying the groundwork for everything that was about to come as you kept going in your careers?
A little bit.
Eventually, I think we started to.
I think I'm a little more delusional sometimes when it comes to work things than Carla Marie in a good way. Like I am always thinking about how to make things bigger and better, create more reach, create more views, clicks, whatever it is. So I was hoping that it would lend itself to that, to put us on that path. I don't think I fully understood what it was going to do though.
But having my own radio morning show was never really anything not that I didn't want it, but it was just like not on my list. I loved being a part of Elvis's show, producing the show, but I wasn't like, I want the Carla Marie show or the Carla Marie and whoever show, whatever it was. I never in my mind thought I would leave Elvis's show or New York or New Jersey. So I was like, yeah, okay, Anthony, sure, whatever. And then like things started getting real and clients were booking us to do events together, or we were being asked to go to the iHeartRadio Music Festival together. And then the conversation started happening of like, this sounds like a decent show. And we're like, what?
And what happened from there? Is that what took you to Seattle?
Yes.
Yeah, basically.
The podcast.
Well, we didn't know this at the time, but there has become this like vacuum, especially in regular terrestrial radio. Because you have shows like Elvis or Bobby Bones or The Breakfast Club that have, hundreds of stations between all three of them. And then you could add all these other brands as well. There wasn't really a good farm system for the next generation of morning shows. The companies, not just iHeartRadio, but all of them have basically killed their farm system. Um, and listen, shows like Elvis and The Breakfast Club are phenomenal,
Right.
but there isn't the smaller stations now where people can learn and grow. We were probably the first podcast that iHeartRadio used as a farm system where they saw that we had some chemistry, and that's really what got us the jobs in Seattle. There were other way more, I wouldn't say talented, experienced hosts around the country that they were also looking at. But the problem you'd run into is you're taking host A from this city that maybe does afternoons, host B from this city that maybe does nights, and hoping
it's an arranged marriage
that they have the chemistry. They knew that they could teach us some of the things, and thankfully, working for Elvis, we learned some of the best practices you could have. They knew we had the chemistry, and we could learn all of the other things later on. Which, I mean, the podcast to the morning show was a direct connection.
And with that now, right? So had the podcast, takes you to the morning show. What was that like? So you're both from New Jersey. You haven't lived, you're young. You're still young, but like at the time, you're young.
Younger.
And now you're moving. They're like, hey, this is it across the country.
literally.
Like, we're expecting you to just pick up and move your life here. What was that experience like with both of you?
I had to look up Seattle on a map during our first interview call because I was like, wait a minute. And I remember we're on speakerphone. They can't see us because no one used Zoom then. And I pull up Google Maps and I look at Anthony and I go, that's far. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, this is where Twilight was here. Oh my God. So I'm like getting amped. And I'm like, this is so, like, I knew so little about US geography at that point. Like, yeah, I learned it in school, but now I'm at this point, I think then I had been to like 7 US states. Now I have 8 left. So moving away made me appreciate and understand the rest of the country and the world more.
And driving through the country 3 full times.
Yes. So that was wild. Literally not knowing where it was fully on a map when we were taking our first call to moving out here and like, this is home. I own a home here. It's nuts.
Thankfully, geography for me is pretty simple. So I knew where Seattle was. But what's interesting, and this is one of the unique things, like, yeah, we're both from New Jersey. We both came from the same radio station. So we learned a lot of things together, similar schools at the end of the day, both big schools in New Jersey, one much larger than the other. But one of the really unique things between the two of us is Carla Marie's family. You're what, 4th generation New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
Like, and when I say 4th generation New Jersey, I mean like the same 7 square miles of New Jersey.
My no one leaves.
Whereas for me, I'm 1st generation American. Like both of my parents grew up in other countries, moved to America. And I bring that up because I think moving was a lot easier for me and a lot easier for my family to understand because we weren't as settled in America, for example, as Carla Marie's family was. Like her mom's grandmother was what, the person who moved here? Or no,
my great grandma.
Great-grandma.
Okay, but yes, he's right. Like my family still doesn't understand how I left 7 years later. Like,
right, because you're Italian and you're from New Jersey, and this is what Italians do. They can't, like, half my family can't understand that I live in Hoboken and not Staten Island. Like, they're like, that's so far. I'm like, it's 35 minutes. What are you talking about?
You might as well be here in Seattle, honestly.
Basically, they're like, oh my God, that's so far. What's going on with that? It's like, what do you mean it's so far? Just drive the car. It's very, very simple.
It's pretty close, actually.
But Carla Marie, you're now like an honorary park ranger, aren't you? So you went from no geography
to I don't think I had been to a national park before we moved here. And I started just because once you're in Seattle, you're literally surrounded by nature. I could walk outside of our office right now and see the Olympic mountain range. It's absurd. So I started being like, oh, let's go on hikes or let's do this. And oh, let's go to a national park. And we did our 2nd summer here, or I believe, or first summer maybe, with one of our friends, flew out and we drove from here to Yellowstone. We did a bunch of them. And I was like, oh my God, I want to go to all of these. I'm obsessed. I love national parks. Oh my God. And I started seeing, I could have been a park ranger. Like, this is a dream. what a cool job. And then I started seeing like other things I could do in my life that weren't just radio. And I don't know that I would have ever thought about literally anything else in this world if I didn't leave the bubble of New York, New Jersey, and Elvis Duran in the Morning Show. Because you really are in a bubble when you're in that show. Like, it was a shock.
It's a bubble within a bubble.
It
almost.
is. It was a shock to go to a new radio station where you weren't sourced, you weren't trusted, you just weren't treated the way that that show was, to a new city where you're like, oh my God, look at all these different things here.
You know, the sports analogy I'd use for that, for especially Elvis's show, is imagine being a rookie in the NFL and you get drafted to, let's say, the Patriots, a team that I might hate, but at the same time, it's just really well run. They've been winning for a long time. They had Tom Brady there who held it down for so long. You think that's how the rest of the league works.
Yeah.
And then you get traded to the Jets and you're like, oh, wow, nothing here works properly.
That's actually one of the best analogies I've ever heard.
It is.
And that's what it was like going from iHeartRadio New York. And keep in mind, we stayed with the same company. We came to iHeartRadio Seattle, but we were with the best of the best, not only in terms of the city, the biggest radio market. No show in the country is as close-knit and as well-run as Elvis's show. It's just, there isn't a contest. Then we came out here, which was a city that had a lot of turnover within the building. There were a lot of morning shows that came and went, a lot of executives that came and went, a lot of program directors. And you're learning from scratch here. They don't have the stability that the show we came from did. So that's really the best example I can give.
And now with that, you just said there was like kind of a lack of stability. Things change. You guys, I don't know if it was let go or mutually parted ways.
Okay. No, we were let go.
No. I'll give you the best part about this is that I don't think a lot of people don't understand the in between. So I will get to the end of our time in radio, but so we move out here 2016. We take over a brand new station. They changed the brand, logo, all of it. So we're the morning show there. We do that for 2 years. We took the station from what to what?
In the morning show, in our day part specifically, we went from 20 seconds to second.
Okay. We're second.
I couldn't tell you 22 other radio stations in the city. So
still, that's pretty damn good.
Yes, right? They decide they're changing the station back to what it was prior. So they're going from top 40 back to hip hop. And we would be your new morning show. And I was like, I don't know hip hop. What are you talking about? So I was just so confused because this was so foreign to us. Imagine being an Elvis show. They're like, by the way, we're changing the station. We're changing Z100 New York. We're like, what do you mean? So they have a meeting with us one night. They're like, we're changing the station in 2 days. I go in the next day. I'm like, I'm not doing this. I can't do this.
And they said, this is a bad idea.
I can't do this. This is a bad idea. And they had us do it anyway. So we flipped the station. We're now Cube 93, Seattle's #1 for hip hop. For 3 days, Anthony and I were the hosts of the morning show, and higher ups came in and were like, what did you guys do here? These two are not hip hop. And they said the same freaking thing that I said to our bosses. So now we were on the hip hop morning show for 3 days. They called us to a meeting and they were like, we don't know. We're just going to honor your contracts. You have at least 6 months. We're not sure. You're not going to have a job. I was like, I'm going to Italy. Like, I'm out. You're going to pay me to not do anything? Goodbye. Then they say, we'll put you on nights on our other station. So we hosted a night show for 4 months, 5 months. And then they decide to fire the morning show on that station, put us on there. We do that for 3 months. Then we finally get to bring in 2 new people. But we weren't allowed to just hire the people we wanted to hire. We had to do a freaking contest. Like, it was absurd. We had to bring in people, audition them live on the air. It was this whole big nonsense for months. And yes, I'm still bitter about it. And we did that for a year and a half. And then they let us all go.
That never works out. I don't know. Like, I don't know that much about radio, but I feel like contests don't work out.
I mean, it's so frustrating because they opened it up as a contest, but really it just was bosses being like, we want this person or that person. And we ended up having a great team, really, the 5 of us at that time. And then a year and a half later, we got let go. Like, it was just the first 2 years, work-wise here, were the best.
Oh, yeah.
Work-wise. I mean, we're still here. We love the city, but
now,
after that, it was just chaos.
But now, things happen in life that you just gotta roll with.
Yes.
And you've now carved your way to a better morning show. I read the posts. I know why did you start this podcast now? And what's it been like basically starting something completely new and building this up?
Surprisingly, building it as something new wasn't as difficult for us as it may have been for some other people, because we had done a lot of these steps at different points in our career. So we knew how to launch a podcast. We knew how to do Twitch. We knew how to do social, all of those things. We knew how to conceptualize a show and build out benchmarks and different things that you do. And the reason we did it, and the reason we have the morning show podcast specifically built to the way it is we didn't listen to radio for a while after we got let go. And we were driving to drop off something to a listener, actually.
Yep.
Up in a place called Cedro Woolley here in Seattle, or in Washington. And we turned on the radio again. And you got to remember, this is during the height of the pandemic. So a lot of the radio companies, what they did, because they lost advertisers because of the economy, is instead of saying, hey, we're going to create a better product, and this is across the board, almost every radio station did this, we're going to sell our spots, our commercials, for way less. We'll take as much money as we can get from anyone, and we'll put as many commercials on the radio as we can. So you ended up with radio stations that had 15-minute commercial breaks. That's not exaggeration. 15 to 20-minute commercial breaks.
Who wants to listen
in a row? And that
to
was the whole point. We said no one can listen to this. I don't care how much you love the person, right? Thankfully, like Elvis, they capped that at
10.
9 minutes or something. And even then, there's a song in between, so that makes it a little better. But it doesn't matter. You could be the biggest Elvis fan in the world. If someone gave you 20 minutes to listen through of commercials, you're not sticking around. So we figured, let's build a product that takes all of the things that we know from morning radio, the things that people expect, want, enjoy, and let's create it in a package that's easy to find, and easy to listen to. And it gets all the things out of the way, and we set the limit at under 25 minutes.
Which is basically a commercial break for most radio stations. So
like today's episode was literally 24 minutes and 30 seconds, I believe.
Wow. I like that. I see. I didn't know the backstory of that. I didn't know the backstory of that and why. Sorry, I just cut you off. What were you going to say?
No. We did Twitch first when we got let go. We had been streaming on Twitch while on the radio. And then we were like, well, let's just keep doing this. And we still do it. But when we got let go in 2020, we just went with Twitch, and we didn't know what our next thing was going to be. We also legally couldn't do anything else. So we were kind of stuck because of our
severance.
I couldn't think of the word, and our contracts and all that. And we were just stuck. And I'm actually kind of grateful for that, because who knows what we would have rushed to create. It gave us time to kind of think, have these moments of, oh, wait, what if we create something better? So that is the story of the morning show podcast. And then I remember Anthony was like, we'll do it every morning. And I was like, every morning we're going to do this? He's like, no, we'll do it at night. I was like, every night we're going to put out a podcast? That's crazy. And every night, Sunday through Thursday night, we are working on the next morning's podcast. We still haven't figured out a great routine, but it's up there every morning. And it's under 25 minutes.
That's the thing, though, too. A lot of people don't realize consistency is the number one thing with anything, really.
Yeah.
And you guys stuck to that. You're still sticking to it. And I would consider it a massive success. Like, this is like what you guys do is incredible. You were best friends. You're best friends for the longest time. And then I see an Instagram post. This is how I found out. I see an Instagram post that there's some big news coming. And I met you guys through Alex. And she goes, maybe this is it. I don't know. Maybe this is an announcement. And I was like, it looks like it, but let's see. And we tune in, and you're together. So which
most views ever?
Which one of you was the catalyst of decide? I mean, it's obviously mutually. You were like, yeah, we have feelings, but which one brought it up first?
Go for it.
It was me. I was like, is he gonna try to steal this from me?
Why would I steal it?
No, it was me. And he was like, yeah, but we kind of live in the best of both worlds right now. Like, we get to be around each other and be friends and not deal with the drama. Like, why would we ruin that? And I was like, yeah, but
that's code for I rejected Carla Marie the
he
first
did.
time.
Wow. Basically. And I was like, okay. But he was like, I mean, I like feel the same way, but we shouldn't do this, which is honestly a fair answer because there was a lot on the line. I mean, our careers, everything. Like my best friend and my best friend, because I had friends here, but like we were each other's piece of home. And we could have literally exploded everything we've ever worked for. We still could at this point, I
Yeah.
guess. But then eventually, I guess I wore him down.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, there you go.
And for a while, I mean, we did it. People, it's interesting with
Yeah.
our relationship is even when both of us were dating other people, people assumed for some reason we were together because we were very close. And part of that was also you have a very unique schedule in morning radio. There aren't a lot of people who are going to be able to go to lunch with you the second you're done with work and then not have to go back or whatever it is. But there was a time when we got out to Seattle because in New York, like nothing really happened. When we got to Seattle, we did have to hide it for a little bit. And the funniest thing or the weirdest thing is the morning show that we took over for on our second station here, I guess technically third, was a show that did really well for a long time. It was a married couple. They got divorced and the show kind of followed suit.
And we kept hearing from people forever
Yeah.
that was like, once we moved out here, it was like, you better not date. You better not date. And we were like, okay, like, relax, bro. We're not going to date
Yeah.
because we really didn't think we were. And then it was like, the whole idea was that we were about to take over for the show where previously these people were married and the whole thing blew up. And then we were like, oh, shoot. Like, is this station cursed? Like, we start liking each other and dating. And it was just like this whole thing.
But there might be a curse on that studio because the show that was in there, like I said before us, was a couple.
Two before us.
Huh?
Two before us.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Yes.
They split. Then the show that replaced us was also a married couple, and they have since
The key is to not be married when you're there.
Yeah, I think the key is to not start the show as a couple, which we didn't.
We didn't.
Like we keep going back to the fact that everything we do, whether it's the morning show podcast or our show on Twitch, which is the Carla Marie and Anthony show, it is a show first. We are co-hosts that also happen to be in a relationship. It isn't a show
about
being in a relationship.
Right. So how do you balance that? Like, do you put on like different hats? Like, hey, I'm talking as co-host right now. I'm not talking as boyfriend, girlfriend. Like, how does that work?
Sometimes.
I think because we very rarely bring up topics from our personal lives. That's actually also not true.
No, that's not true.
No, I was
That's
gonna
not
say with
true
each
at all.
other. It's not like I'm not gonna bring up a topic that's like I'm also gonna complain about something you do at home. But we try to look at the world before ourselves first, right? Like there's this whole thing with bachelorette parties. Like this is a hot topic on our show all the time of like how they're over the top. So we're talking about that and our personal lives. It's absurd.
And that would be on the Twitch version of our show, not the podcast.
Yeah, the podcast is like strictly business.
Right.
There's no anything really about our relationship there at all. But obviously we talk about like, well, yeah, when we're out to dinner together or when Anthony's over with my family, whatever it may be, of course we're going to share our personal lives, but we very rarely present arguments, right? For people to kind of settle for us. If one comes up while we're live, people are like, oh, I agree with you. But it's never like settle this couple debate. Cause like,
no, but I think the easiest answer, honestly, is the way that you separate, the relationship side of it to the work side and personal is, we're really good at boundaries and respecting one another's boundaries.
Yes.
And that's really what it comes down to. And I think one of the reasons both of the things that we've done, whether professional or personal, has worked is everything that Carla Marie and I have done since the very beginning of our partnership. There's always been a ton of trust. I know that Carla Marie is never going to put me in a situation that's going to embarrass me or put me, out on a limb by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And conversely, she knows the same. I'm never going to put Carla Marie in a position that's going to embarrass her, endanger her, or whatever, anything like that. And if you have that base level of trust, then anything else is actually super easy.
That's a fantastic answer. Look at I love him. I love him. He's so awesome. I'm just saying. She's Carla Marie, you're awesome too. But
I know, but like he doesn't need to hear it.
If there was a pecking order of awesomeness,
okay.
I think no.
That's fair. But what's your favorite thing about building what you have now together?
You want to go?
What were you going to say?
I was going to say from the professional side of it, I love learning. Like I am a big nerd, and I have learned so many new things as we've ventured out onto these different paths, whether it's through the podcast that we're now doing, the morning show podcast, whether it's the Twitch channel, because we treat those as two very separate things. Obviously, the audience overlaps, but I've learned so many things about video streaming and equipment and audio quality, and it keeps me energized when I get to do new things, try new things, and learn about them. And I think that's helped us grow, and that's one of the reasons that we've been able to continue on this journey is we haven't been scared to learn things or try new things.
But Steve said, what is the best part about doing this together? So you
Trust.
watch your videos alone.
I could do that alone, I guess.
Wow. Wow.
Then I would say if I'd go back to the trust thing.
Yeah, it is cool.
It's made our trust stronger because we've, it's not easy doing this. We've had to lean on each other for certain things. There are times where I'll go to Carla Marie and say, listen, I am not having a good day. Like, can you just handle this? I don't want to be on this call, or I don't want to go to this meeting. Can you do this on your own? My mind isn't there. And she does.
Well, what I love about it is it's good and bad because you feel like I need to hold up my end of this. I can't let this fail because this is someone I truly care about.
Right.
Also a part of this. So sometimes if you're not doing things for yourself, you're doing them for someone else that you care about. And I think there's a lot of that. Like, I need to make sure and this has been like before we were a couple, I got to hold my own because of this other person. And I had something else I was going to say and I completely lost it, but damn it. And it was great. God, it's gone.
That's why
forever.
I'm awesomer.
Oh my God, stop.
Wow. All right. I mean, look, it could come back. So if it comes back, just
If it comes back,
you just let me know. We're here for that.
I will scream. Trust
That's
me.
it.
I promise.
Yeah. Let us know. Just interrupt me if I'm rambling. But you're doing this together. You're building like this great life together. Shows. Now, this could be for both of you or one of you. Do you have a mentor or mentors that have helped you both through this process?
I think the
Elvis.
joint answer we'd have is Elvis.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are times that we'll both reach out to him, whether it's together or separately, and just ask him a question. And he, from even when we were there learning under him before we had our own shows, I mean, that guy, if you're on his team, he is taking care of you. He is making sure that you're happy. He's making sure that you're safe. And he's making sure that you're growing.
Yeah. Elvis is the easy answer. Also, Dennis Clark, who is Elvis's best friend and iHeartRadio's consultant from the get-go with us in our podcast. Like, I have a screenshot of an email from him in like 2014 where he was like, wow, you guys sound so great. And he was just always kind of like a positive light for us when we were on the radio. And we still keep in touch with him now. And he's always looking out for us, which is so nice. But I don't really think that there's no like mentor, right, that I have now that I'll specifically go to for things, but we do have a group of peers.
Yeah.
We call ourselves the Content Kittens.
Okay.
And it's our best friends, but it's Ricky Sanchez, who is on a morning show in Nashville, radio morning show. Erica Shea, who just got her own morning show in Salt Lake City. And then our friend Jake, who was the video producer at Elvis's show after Anthony left.
Took over right after me.
Now he lives in Napa and produces content for the biggest wine brands in the world. And then our friend John, who is on a morning show in LA, one of the biggest morning shows in radio. So
shout out to Valentine in the morning.
Yeah, we all have a group chat two of them worked for Ryan Seacrest directly every morning for years. So
and the rest of us all worked for Elvis at some point.
Yeah. So we have like this great friendship, but also like bounce ideas off of one another and share things. And there's no like gatekeeping at all. It's like, I have this idea. What do you guys think? You should use it on your show, or we should do this, or what do you think of this? And having that trust, going back to trust with just like a group of friends that are all over the country doing different things, it's so invaluable.
And I think the
word
invaluable.
Yeah. Okay. Just make sure.
Or valuable works as well. But anyway, the interesting thing about that group, and I hope that everyone in whatever their profession is can find a group like this, is everyone in that group chat will gladly help everyone else in that group chat without looking for anything in return.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's the most valuable part. And you start learning about yourself too when you do that. Like, I will, let's say, for example, Ricky was to send me a piece of audio and ask me for my opinion. She's doing that because she knows I am going to give her my honest opinion, and there's no there's nothing in it for me.
Mhm.
I'm not going to gain anything from it. So she's going to get an honest opinion, and we can all do the same thing. We can send a video and say, what do you guys think of this? Let me know what should be edited out or added. And no one has any ulterior motives. So you're getting honest feedback from people that you genuinely trust. And it goes back again to having people that you genuinely trust to just have your back no matter what.
I remembered, by the way.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
Steve.
Go ahead. Go.
So the thing I like about creating everything we create with an actual like life partner, not just a business partner, is I feel like so many times in work environments it gets so toxic because you go home to your significant other and you complain about your coworkers.
Yeah.
That's clearly not happening here, and we have to be open where like if you're doing something that's bothering me or this routine isn't working or this schedule isn't working, we have to tell each other because that's it, because it's going to spill over into our personal life and you'll just be miserable and you don't have someone to vent to when you come home from work. And I think being able to do that and be
Yeah.
honest and open with each other makes it so much better. Working with your significant other is not easy
No.
by any means.
I don't even know if I'd suggest it to anyone.
But I think there's no toxicity where in every place I've ever worked, it may not have been miserable, but there is some sort of toxicity. And having this situation, I think, kind of eliminates that.
Or you could do what I do. I complain to Steve about all the things that you do, Carla.
I bet.
Right. I have a bunch of text messages, but I'm just gonna leave it alone.
Okay.
No, but I get that too, though. I get what you're saying there because me and Alex do have worked together a lot. We still do work together a lot. So it's like you just really have to communicate at that time. Like, hey, like she has no qualms with saying like, hey, this is not working for this. Like it's got to get fixed. And I come back and I'm like, all right, let's figure it out. So I get exactly what you're saying with that. And also back to the mentors or the group. People don't realize how important it is to have a group of people that are like-minded and doing the same thing as you, because I find this a lot. I have friends who don't have businesses and they don't really they can't really understand what I'm going through at certain points. But, I have friends who have businesses and you text them and you're like, "Hey, what do you think of this idea?" Or what do you think of X, Y, and Z? And they can answer you like you said. They're not looking. There's nothing in it for them. They just want to help because they've been through it before and they know what you're going through. And having those types of people in your life is invaluable. I'm going to use that. Yeah. I'm going to use that one. But now let's move a little bit to. This really isn't work related, but we live in a world where social media is like all over the place. We're all on our phones all the time. How do you guys disconnect from it? Do you take time to just get away from everything and disconnect from the technology aspect? And how do you do it?
Anthony disconnects from technology by playing video games. So does that count?
Well, I mean, I guess, right? Is that
I do disconnect.
What type of video games can I ask?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Pokemon. I kind of have been for a long time. And thankfully, with the extra time I got during the pandemic when we got let go, I remember hopping on OfferUp one day and being like, oh, I'm gonna see if anyone's selling like an old school Game Boy Color and a Pokemon game. And I was able to get both of those for pretty cheap. And I started playing again. And that like reinvigorated me. And what I love about that is those games aren't really connected to a lot. They're not necessarily multiplayers or anything where you have to hop online and play with someone. So you get to just live in that little pixelated world for a little bit and block out everything else. But the other thing, so I will play video games from time to time. And the other thing I'll do is I'll go to the gym. And generally speaking, I'm pretty good about blocking all of that out. I still use my phone for like tracking it and timing things. But for the most part, I'm pretty good about saying I'm not going to do work or get on social media until I go home.
Yeah, working out also for me is important. When I go to a regular gym versus like a class, I catch myself on my phone more. Like if I go to an Orange Theory class, that's it. 60 minutes. I can't do anything but let my brain just go. I'm not on my phone, none of it, which is I like truly might be one of the best parts about taking a class like that.
That's the same when I do like a title boxing class.
Exactly. But we we can get back into this more now that Anthony has a functioning Achilles, but we, since 2020 would go on walks. And back then we had way more time also. So we were going on like super long walks, like exploring the neighborhood. And every once in a while now it's like, let's just go for a walk. Like,
Yeah.
let's just leave, take your phone for safety, but like you're not on your phone when you're walking. So being able, like doing that is, I think, helped my brain so much over these last 3 years of doing all this, just getting away and getting outside and just clearing your brain.
Do
And
you?
oh,
Sorry.
sorry, Steve.
No, I was gonna say, do you ever work out together besides
yeah.
the walk?
We-
do you ever work out together?
We could work out at the same time.
Right.
We're not necessarily working out together.
Yeah, we're not like, I'm not,
Okay.
what is it, spotting Anthony or
Yeah.
any of that?
Well, I asked that because so last year was probably I just was not into working out at all and just lost everything. And then this year, Alex was like, "Listen, we have to get back into this." And she, she was like, "Let's join the gym. It's around the block from us. It's a class gym." And she was like, she's like, "It's right here. It's 2 minutes away. We could start going together, and like you don't have to think about what to do. They're just gonna tell you
Yes.
what to
Yeah.
do
And you do it.
when you go." And I remember it was probably like we started doing this for like a day, and I was like, I don't want to go to class. And she was like, "No." She was like, "You always do this." Like, she's like, "You like want to commit, and then you don't want to stick with it for some reason." And I was like, "You know what? Like, she holds me accountable for
Yeah.
it. We
Yeah.
hold each other accountable, and
Yep.
it's changed. It's definitely changed my life in terms of going together and being able to have someone to go with. And I know some couples don't, but that's the reason that I asked that,
No,
because it's changed a lot for us.
I mean, listen, the Shaun T world, we all know this. Accountability is so important. And even if you're not going with that person, like I know Anthony's going to gym, like, oh man, I guess I have to go. Like, or we'll go together. It does make it easier. Or if he's going to the gym, like, all right, I'll go to Orange Theory then while you're at the gym,
Yeah.
and we come back and we can work whatever it is. But it does make such a difference when you're like, I don't think I could be in a relationship with someone who just never worked out ever. Like it just,
So you're safe there.
I know.
Because I don't think
And
that's
it's
gonna
not
be me.
because like they're gonna look different. Just health is important, and I think like that's a major priority that you guys should have in common in a relationship. So it definitely does make things different. But super important question, Steve. How are Alex's pull-ups coming along?
Her pull-ups are coming along great. She's killing it. She thought she was gonna lose it a little bit when we went to Greece, but she didn't at all. She's like back and better than ever. I think she wants one like full, which she has, but I think I think by the end of the year, she wanted to do one by the end of the year. And I was like, "You got that." I think she could get to like 4 or 5 before the year.
Oh, the last time she and I spoke, we were both going to try to do 3 by the end of the year.
But see, that's part of the accountability thing that Steve you just mentioned is I think accountability is not just making sure someone checks in all the time, but you can also push them because Carla Marie will set goals sometimes. And I'll say, well,
That's so
why,
annoying.
whether there's no wrong answer, but why is that your goal?
Right.
Is it your goal because you think it's easy to achieve, or is it your goal because that's actually what you want to achieve? And one of the things about accountability sometimes is you have to be able to trust the person again. And sometimes if Carla Marie is like, "Oh, I'm not going to go to Orange Theory today, or I'm going to skip the gym," I'll say, "That's fine, but I don't want to hear you complain about this, next week when we're going to so-and-so place, or you're putting on that dress, or whatever thing we can sometimes complain about." I'll say, "You don't have to go, but you're going to lose the ability to complain this weekend."
Okay,
if
yeah,
you
but
don't.
doing one class isn't going to make my dress fit.
No.
That's for sure.
No,
But if you continue that trend,
Yes.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of how we do it, right? So sometimes you just wake up and you just get your ass kicked in a class, and the next day you're like, "I'm sore and I can't really move," and we'll talk to each other like, "Okay, let's go for a walk. But let's go try and do like a 2-mile walk and come back, and that's good for the day." But like having that person there to be like, "Hey, let's go. This is important," has been huge. And
that person to say, "Take a break. It's okay."
Right. And on top of that, I want to piggyback off that because that's something that's important. That's a routine that's important, going to the gym. Do you have a morning routine that you kind of like schedule out your day?
You know, I was thinking about this the other day actually, because I don't have a morning routine. I've really never had a morning routine.
Oh.
And when I say never, you have to remember that I started working with Elvis when I was like 23, I think I was. So everything before that, I was just like a teenage idiot, basically. um, but then when you start working so early and you have to be somewhere at 5:30, 5:45, for example, it's hard to get a schedule down because what are you going to do at that time unless you have the resources for like a home gym or, because there are coffee places that aren't even open that early when you're headed to work.
Yeah.
So for us, I think that has kind of lingered, even though we don't wake up that early anymore. I never got, as an adult, I never really got into a good
Okay.
kind of rhythm because I was always going to work so early. And maybe that's just an excuse I'm making
Yeah,
for
don't
myself.
rope me into that. There was a time in my life where I did, but
Explain.
I feel personally victimized by this question because I want a morning routine again so bad. And I don't know what is happening that I cannot get myself back into it. But there was a 2-3 year period where when we had our morning show, I was waking up at 3:30 a.m.
Whoa.
I lived in an apartment complex that had a gym, and I was doing like the beach body workouts in the gym alone. No one was there. It was great. I'd go back up to my apartment, shower, make my shake, get ready, and go to work. And it was, I'm telling you, I have never felt better in my life than when I worked out every morning, had a routine, went to work, and then at the end, I got home and I could do whatever I wanted. I didn't have to worry about going to the gym, dealing with people, whatever. Then when I moved into my house, it was 2019, that routine got rocked because I didn't have a gym to get to at 3:30 in the morning. And ever since then, literally 2019, I have been trying to figure out a morning routine. And now we have such a weird week where 3 days a week we have the same schedule. We wake up, do our live show on Twitch. 2 days a week we don't. So out of the weekdays. So it's hard for me to set a routine when our schedules, I guess, are different. But this is like a huge goal of mine. Like, number one priority is to figure out how to start my day the same every day.
I like that, but also I would say don't put like a huge amount of pressure on yourself to do it. Cause I would say in your house, like figure out what works for you and don't just be like, hey, I got to do this because
Mhm.
like, but you want to do it. So it's not like,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't like put the
You need to figure
pressure on
something
it,
out.
you know?
Okay. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate like this little therapy session we
Yeah,
just
that's-
had.
I think there's also part of it in finding what works for you is finding out what type of worker or creative you are. Because some people are more creative in the morning. I'm not.
Mm.
All of my creativity will normally come to me at night.
Right.
And I don't mind staying up late. I enjoy working at night by myself when everyone else is done working. So I think finding out, like you said, what works for you, what time of day is your most creative, most productive. If you have a schedule, like if you work for yourself and you can figure that out, that's great, and lean into it.
Right.
You don't have to fit yourself into the morning guru, lifestyle. As long as you're getting proper sleep, whatever works for you after that works for you.
Right. Right. And that's why I do it so early. Like you said, your best ideas come at night. Nobody's bothering you. That's why I do it early because nobody's bothering me. But if
Yep.
like 8 o'clock hits, my phone's just people, emails.
Yep.
It's like, I can't with this right
Well,
now.
also being here on the West Coast,
You wake
because
up
we're
to
3
chaos.
hours behind everyone, by the time I'd say 7, 8 o'clock hits here
At
in
night or
Seattle at
morning?
night, everyone else that I know, all my family, all my friends, they're ending their days. So I have from 7 to whenever I decide to go to sleep kind of free.
Yeah, but the downside to that is you wake up to 800 text messages because your group chats are going off and all this stuff because everyone's been awake 3 hours before you. So there's a lot of figuring out.
There's
the
a lot
time
of
zone
figuring
thing.
that out there.
Yeah.
But I like where that combo is going though. We'll get you a morning routine, Carla Marie. Don't worry.
It's gonna happen. That's my goal.
That's it.
I will come back just to tell you I did it.
So what does living an awesome life look like to the both of you?
Man, I think if you're from just bird's eye view perspective, I would love to get to a point, because I think financial security is the biggest thing for
Yeah.
everybody. Because once you're financially secure, everything else does kind of fall into place.
Yeah.
You can start saying no to things you don't want to do for
Mhm.
work. You can start prioritizing things a little differently. I think finding a space where I'm financially secure enough. I don't need to be a
I don't, yeah.
multi-trillionaire. I don't need to be Bezos. It'd be nice if someone handed you his money, but I don't need it.
No.
but getting to a point where I'm financially secure enough to scale back from social media,
Yes.
that would be an awesome life for me. I love social media in terms of the connections I make with our community. I'm not someone who loves posting about myself though.
Right. Right.
And I think it was who's that? This is gonna sound weird. Who's that? Is like a younger, really good looking comedian who's like
Matt
taking
Rife.
Matt
Matt
Rife.
Rife. He was on a podcast recently. He's like, I
Right.
want to become successful enough where I can just delete all my social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't.
I understand
I
that.
mean, I've connected with people like
Yeah, of
you're
course.
saying. It is truly one of the greatest things. I've met best friends through there, but honestly, like there's times where I'm like, I want to delete this so bad, but I can't because like it is a main source of income for
Yeah.
me. And it's such a double-edged sword. So yeah, I agree with Anthony where like being financially stable, not having to deal with social media, and I kind of am better at this now already, but your job isn't everything and like that's not your priority. It's not your end all be all. If something goes wrong with your job or work, it's not your life's not over. Just it's just something you do. It's not who you are. And I have been working on that for a few years and I'm kind of past it now, but I think continuing that
Yeah.
of just like I'm doing these things because I like them, not because I need to or am identifying with this and it's everything that I am is this job and what we've created or whatever it may be. Just I'm doing it because it's what makes me happy.
And I'd like to add one more thing. I think that what we're talking about is kind of like the end point, but I
Yeah.
think living an awesome life, to your question before, Steve, is understanding that even if you're not at that point,
Hmm.
you're getting there and you're on the right track, and understanding that your track isn't everybody else's track. And if you can understand that, and this is something that I'm still training myself to do. I'm not trying to say I'm some sort of, self-help guru here. Um, I think if I could do that better than I am now, I'd be much closer to an awesome life, if that makes any sense.
What would you say if I said that you are both already living an awesome life?
Mm.
I would say that I need to have you send me little voice notes every morning.
No,
And-
I think that we are. I mean,
yeah,
we
I'm on
get
the
to
path. What?
we get to like travel,
Yeah.
see our friends, see our family, and do not brain surgery and spreadsheets for a living.
Yes.
Like it's pretty cool.
It's a pretty good deal, honestly.
Yeah.
But I think like you're a business owner, Steve.
Yeah.
You're self-employed, you're motivated. There's this thing in us, in our brains, that always tells us like it's not good enough or it has to be better.
Yes.
Do
And
more.
that beast inside of me, I like it. I'm not trying, because I think we've all been able to accomplish things because that little monster pushes us. But you also have to be able to tell that little monster, like, right now is not your time.
Right. And the thing is,
You know?
too, the thing with that is, you know, and that is a monster like that's living in your head. That's like, hey,
Mhm.
you got to do more. You got to do more. You got to do more. But at the same time, you got to stop sometimes. And this is where like having someone like Alex
Mhm.
comes in. She's like, hey, look at where you came from to where you are right now. You could not take the foot off the gas, but you're beating yourself up too much. You could
Yeah.
take a step back a little bit, and there's a balance in that. But
Yep.
that guy's always there saying, hey, you got to keep going. You got to work all hours of the day. And it's like, no, you need to make time for the important people and important things
Yes.
in your life.
We had a medium of all things on our show today. And one of the things she said to one of our callers was, you have to realize that good enough is good enough sometimes. You don't have to try to be the best or work the most amount of hours. If the job is done, the job is like, it's done.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my God, good enough is good enough. I'm running with this. And I'm so glad I already got to use it once a few hours
There you
later.
go.
And the reason she was saying that to that caller was she was telling him that he's in a place in life where he has been working really, really hard for an extended period of time. And sometimes you've just got to do the thing that's necessary to let your body recover so you can continue
Yeah.
to
Right.
work as hard as you want to.
Right. And like, we don't have kids, but I saw a tweet a couple weeks ago where it was like, the only people that are ever going to remember that you worked late are your kids and your family.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
stop.
And it's like, yeah, you're right. Nobody cares that you worked late. Like if no one cares, so that's where
Damn.
Yeah, it's crazy. I read that and I was like, all right, could change a couple things around here. But now, let's change the subject a little bit. That was great. It was good. But this is change the subject a little bit. This is the most important question that I am going to ask the both of you. What is your go-to karaoke song?
Sum 41 Fat Lip.
Wow.
Really, I would say mine has to be Ice Ice Baby by Vanilla Ice.
I feel like
I've
knew
seen you
that.
do it.
I feel like I knew that for some reason.
There's a chance you may have seen me doing Ice Ice Baby somewhere in Hoboken at some point.
I feel like I knew that. Damn. I'm not surprised at all that you just said that. I feel like that was
when I was like in elementary school, I think that song came out and it just stuck with me.
That's so funny.
I did it one day, the first time I think I ever did karaoke, and it's just been my song ever since. I've done it literally around the world. It's a karaoke bar.
It's a timeless classic, to be totally honest with you.
And it's easy.
Yeah, it really
We
is.
have a karaoke place here called Rockbox, and it's so much fun because you get a room with your friends, and you guys just get to perform together without strangers. We did it for my birthday 2 years ago with all those people we mentioned earlier, all the group chat. It was the most fun. Like, I don't know why they're not on the East Coast.
No, they have them. They have them in the city.
Yeah,
you rent the room.
It's really something that.
Yeah, that's what it is.
We found out. We did a trip through work with Z100 in Taiwan, and they're called KTVs all over the place, like in East Asia. I was thinking I'd have to go through my mental compass.
Oh, geography, huh?
Oh, I was gonna say you better know that.
Navigation, maybe not my thing. But anyway, we did that the first time in Taiwan, and ever since then we're like, this is the coolest experience ever. And now that they've been popping up in America, we've been telling people as many as we can, you have to go. It's so much fun. It's all the perks of like bottle service, if you will. You get your own private area. You get people like bringing you food and drinks. But you just rock out with your friends, and it's phenomenal.
It's amazing. And then the I don't know if it's like that by you, but the ones in the city, they have just the little landline phone that when you want to order more drinks, you just call the front desk, and you're just like, yeah, just bring another round.
That's like an
It's fantastic.
That's awesome.
It's fantastic. This is your chance. Let's plug in. Where can everybody find you?
Okay, so the Morning Show podcast, I suggest starting there because it's something you can do simple every morning. It's wherever you get your podcast.
It could be part of your new morning routine.
It could be. Maybe that's the thing. I need to I can't listen to myself in the morning. Maybe I got to find a podcast in the morning. This one. I'm going to listen to this one. It's called the Morning Show podcast. And then 3 mornings a week, we do a live stream on Twitch. It is completely free to watch, and it's a video, so it's not just audio like our podcast. It's a video stream, and that's more laid back. That's more the conversation part that you would get from a radio morning show, and it's interactive because there's a live chat, so it's like kind of like old school AOL chat rooms while also watching a live video. And if you follow us, Carla Marie and Anthony on Instagram, you'll be able to see everything we do.
And the Morning Show podcast, the recipe is basically we do a thing called the Core 4, which is the 4 biggest headlines that you probably should know before you start your day. News kind of sucks sometimes, so we always end the Core 4 with something called Hope for Humanity, which is a positive headline that makes you feel a little better about the world. We play a music game every morning. We do some pop culture stuff later on in the show, a segment called Nerd News, where we can talk about any type of nerdy thing in the world. And then Carla Marie gives you what's trending, and that caps the show. And what's trending is where she tells you the thing you didn't know you needed until she told you about it.
Also, Steve, you've played the musical game before.
I have. I did better than Alex thought I was gonna do on that game. I missed one. I don't remember which one it was, but I missed one because I knew the song, but I think I had the title wrong, and I'm still eats at me like to this day.
Well, we'll have you guys back on.
We'll do it again. We'll do it. We could do that again. But Carla Marie and Anthony, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to actually have a real conversation that's, outside of just a couple messages on either Twitter or Instagram, just laughing at each other. And, so we got to come out.
Thank you for.
Go ahead.
You want to come out here?
Yeah, we got to come out to Seattle.
Come back.
We got to come out to Seattle.
No, for real. Thank you for having us. Yeah. And I will tell everyone, and obviously if they're listening to this, they know who you are, obviously. But you and what you've posted, even if we're not talking about it, the stuff that you post on social in terms of podcasting and best practices and stuff, I want you to know that it is unbelievably helpful.
Yes.
Whether it's something I know or not, because I've learned a lot from you and I've been also reaffirmed by things that you've posted. So just shout out to you. I want to give you your roses while I can,
Thank you. I really appreciate that, because especially coming from people like you who are in it. So that means a lot. I really appreciate that. Thank you again for coming on, and I'm coming back on the show to play
Yes.
the game again. All right.
Deal.
So everyone, thank you for listening. Don't forget to leave us a review, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and we will see you next week.